Hey bitch, and welcome back to another video. Today's video is something I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time, and it just so happens that my circumstances are absolutely perfect for this video to be published. Oh my god, Caitlin! He's not even limping anymore! But I also think it's important to educate yourself on this issue, especially if you are somebody who owns a horse yourself, and know your horse's anatomy, know what your horse does. Nobody else knows your horse better than you, which is why I think it's important, nonetheless, to educate yourself on this issue.
Their mare, a Lisette, needs some of that care immediately.
This morning I pulled into the clinic and I noticed that one of the horses was limping. It's the front left right there. Whatever it is, it's painful.
Most people, generally speaking, don't really know anything at all about their horse's hooves, and they just leave it up to a farrier or a veterinarian to determine what's best for them. This is excluding medical problems that are found in your horse's feet. Obviously, you would want a professional to determine the outcome and what you should do in that situation, but in my experience, I believe that many people in the equestrian community are very biased towards shoeing or not shoeing your horse, and the purpose of this video is to determine if your horse specifically needs shoes, and the conclusions that I have come to with my own personal horse, Link. Now, before I get into this video, I just want to say that this is the Link Equestrian Bit Skeptic sweatshirt. We have them available on our website now. That link is below. So should you shoe or not shoe your horse? Many people in the industry, from what I've seen, when they purchase a horse, they more or less just go off of what the horse currently has. After talking to many of my friends and many of my instructors, the vast majority of people don't really seem to know much of anything about their horse's feet. They kind of just go off of what the farrier has always done. A lot of times, guys, let's be real, farriers are doing their job and they are making money doing their job, and a lot of times I have encountered many farriers that will want you to do a more expensive option just because they're making money that way, and it might not be necessary for your horse.
Upselling is essentially encouraging a customer to purchase more of the same or an upgraded version of a product and service.
Every single time I have moved to a new facility, I have had a farrier tell me that I need to put shoes on my horse. Link has never had any issues with soundness. Link does not compete. He does not run on hard surfaces regularly. He does not wear down his hooves more than usual. And all of these would be reasons to put shoes on your horse. There's no medical reason to put shoes on my horse, and there's no performance reason to put shoes on my horse. And yet, almost every single farrier I have had in the very beginning stages of them trimming Link's feet have mentioned to me that I should put shoes on my horse for no other reason than added protection. This is why I think it's very important for people to know the physiology and anatomy of their horse and know how their horse functions in pretty much every way. Now, there's obviously an extent to this, like there's obviously plenty of injuries that you don't need to be familiar with. Call your vet out if your horse has any serious problems or injuries, obviously, but there are minor things that you as an owner can educate yourself on, and one of those being how your horse's hoof functions and if you should put a shoe on your horse. Regardless of if you shoe your horse or keep your horse barefoot, your horse needs to be getting regular maintenance done. It's very important to keep up with the trimming of your horse's feet because unlike wild horses who are naturally able to wear down their hooves on a regular basis, horses kept in captivity are not allowed to do that. So given that horse hooves are very complex and they're used to carry the entire weight of the horse, which is thousands of pounds, to summarize, they expand and contract and react as shock absorbers for the horse's legs while the horse is moving across the ground. The wall of the horse's hoof might not have any nerve endings, which is where the shoe is nailed on. However, the rest of the horse's hoof, the internal cavity, has blood vessels and nerve endings throughout. Horses have relatively sensitive feet, which is one of the biggest reasons why when horses have bruised soles or abscesses, they have a considerable limp to the point where you would actually think the horse may have torn a tendon or a ligament. That's how severe some horses react when they get a bruise on their sole. And trust me, that is 100% true because I have firsthand knowledge of this. But the overall soundness of your horse is mostly determined by the health of the hooves themselves. So it's incredibly important, much more important than people think, to actually understand what's going on in your horse's hoof and how to maintain and care for the hoof properly without overstressing it, causing more damage accidentally, or doing things to the hoof that are just completely unnecessary. I think it's important to note that there is no real need to have shoes on a perfectly sound and perfectly healthy barefoot horse's hoof. And if you purchase a horse that is already shod, I personally believe that it's important to speak to the previous owner and the previous farrier of the horse and ask why the horse has been shod, if the horse has previously had any injuries or instances where it was necessary, or if the horse has softer soles, etc., etc., etc. The main reasons why I see people shoe horses is because of the weather conditions that might soften the bottom of their horse's feet, causing the feet to wear and tear more easily, traction in winter months, horses that have sensitive hooves, meaning soles or frogs that are really, really soft to the touch that need to be elevated off the ground to further protect the sole. Horses that need shoes for corrective purposes, such as cow-hocked horses, or horses that have abscesses in their feet, or horses that need shoes for rehabilitation purposes, which I'm not going to get into, but there's a myriad of reasons why horses would need shoes for rehab. But all of these reasons aside, there is no reason to shoe a horse for added protection, because horse hooves naturally on their own serve enough protection for the horse. And there have been many studies that have showcased how over time barefoot horses actually develop more protection on their feet, just being naturally exposed to the elements. And for anybody saying that they're shoeing their horse not because their horse has any problems with their hoof, but because their horse is doing excessive exercise or jumping or dressage, I don't really think that's a valid reason either. There's, not to mention, a myriad of professional riders who jump at professional levels, even the Olympics this year, who rode barefoot horses. Should you shoe a horse just because your horse is jumping or doing dressage or barrel racing or anything else? No. Obviously, I want to add in that if your horse is doing excessive exercise and is prone to the hoof wearing down quicker without protection, I'm not saying to not put any protection on your horse's hoof at all, but I don't think that's a reason to necessarily shoe a horse when there are many other options available, like what we're going to get into in just a few minutes. There are also many risk factors in shoeing horses, such as if you have a bad farrier, they can nail deep into the hoof tissue and cause problems. Not to mention that shoeing a horse actually takes away the shock absorption that the natural hoof allows the hoof to have when it makes contact with the ground. This is something that's really important in the horse's overall anatomy and the way the horse's leg functions. If your horse's hoof is not allowed to be a shock absorber, which is mostly what it was designed for in the first place, it really does cause a lot of problems up the entire leg of the horse. There's also a lot of studies that talk about how the natural slip of a barefoot hoof is actually really good for the horse, and a lot of times shoes will prevent that from happening, which causes even more problems in the horse's leg. Not to mention the obvious of many horses pull shoes on a regular basis, which can cause many conformation problems. I mean, there's just a myriad of things that can go wrong when you nail a piece of metal onto a horse's foot. Now, I'm not saying that shoes are abusive or that they're wrong in any way, because I personally believe that you as a rider should study this and understand this as best as possible to know what is the best for your horse. But generally speaking, all horses are the same species, and therefore they do not need the added protection of a horseshoe unless it is absolutely necessary. Speaking as somebody who has had a barefoot horse for 11 years, I think it's important to note that my horse has never had any problems at all being barefoot. And that is up until recently, so we're gonna talk about how I solved this issue without shoeing my horse. It's actually a lot better. It's actually a lot better. You're way less lame. It's a lot better, significantly better. So at this section of the video, I want to talk about scoop boots. Scoop Boots did send me a free package to try, and I got them in the mail, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but they did not pay me any money to make this video. They did not tell me to make this video. This is genuinely me wanting to make this video because I want to talk about my experiences. The initial intention with working with Scoop Boots was to actually just make a trial video and see how they work out with my horse. However, I recently encountered a problem with Link this last week where he came up completely lame, dead lame, like the lamest I've ever seen, to the point where myself and everybody at my barn were freaking out, and we thought that he had torn a tendon or torn a ligament or torn some muscle higher up in his shoulder. We discovered this on Monday. It's Wednesday now. I have been in touch with my veterinarian. Link is limping pretty severely on his right front leg, to the point where it's very difficult for him to walk. It was honestly the most bizarre injury because I just came out to the barn last Monday and saw my horse completely dead lame, and there was no explanation for it. I genuinely thought that my horse was gonna have a severe problem and that I'm gonna be lucky to get out of this with just having him sound again, but never being able to ride. It was really weird because we thought that he had maybe pulled something in turnout, and nobody really noticed until the next day when it became very visible that he was not walking correctly. But he didn't have any heat to the touch of his leg. There was no swelling anywhere, so there was no indication that he had torn a muscle or tendon or ligament. I actually scheduled a vet appointment for that following Friday to get an x-ray and an ultrasound done on his leg, because a couple days went by and for the life of me, nobody could figure out what was wrong with Link. Like, nobody knew what was going on with him. And I wish to God that I had videotaped his before and after because it was this drastic. But I'm telling you guys, everybody at my barn thought that he broke his leg or something severe had happened, because he was not putting any weight on his leg at all, to the point where he was literally hopping. It's just unlikely that he would tear a ligament or a tendon or break his leg in his stall. It's just, that would be the weirdest fucking thing ever. My vet advised us last week to just put him on stall rest for a few days until we could determine what it is, because we could not find anything wrong with his leg. It was crazy. And I want to bring to everybody's attention that abscesses are incredibly rare, especially in a desert environment, so it's highly unlikely, but I did check his feet for abscesses that first day, and I didn't see anything. I thought back to myself, you know, I wonder if I take these scoop boots back out and just try putting it on his feet and seeing if anything changes. And I'm gonna feel around his feet because my vet and I had discussed that maybe he had stepped on a rock or bruised his hoof in some way out in turnout, and became very, very sensitive to the touch the next day because the bruise had caused some internal bleeding inside his hoof. And they're incredibly painful for the horse, which is why so many horses that get bruised feet end up acting like they broke their leg. So everything seemed to be adding up in my mind, and I genuinely was like, okay, well, perfect timing, because Scoop Boots sent me this package a couple weeks ago, and I was already gonna test it out anyway and do a trial video. And then it was just absolutely the perfect coincidence that my horse ended up bruising his foot, because what happened is I took the Scoop Boots out, and again, not sponsored, not paid to say this at all. You guys know that I would not tell you false information. I took the Scoop Boots out, and genuinely, everybody at my barn and myself, we were all like, yeah, you know, it's probably not gonna work because his limp is so severe that I genuinely thought that it was some sort of deep tear. I put the Scoop Boots on him, and I shit you not, it blew me away that once he started walking, it was totally normal. It's actually a lot better. You're way less lame. I know, buddy. Good boy. He's actually putting oh my god, wow. He's actually putting like full weight on his hoof with the Scoop Boot. Do you see this? Guys, he was literally limping like 2 minutes ago. Holy shit. You could obviously tell that it was definitely foot sensitivity, because as soon as I put the shoe on his foot, he was walking completely normally. And even the next day, we put him in turnout and he did totally fine. I mean, it was so mind-blowing to me that the day that I put those Scoop Boots on and he started walking normally, I picked up my video camera and I just started recording it because I was freaking out. I mean, you can literally hear the excitement in my voice. Oh my god, Caitlin! He's not even limping anymore! He's like walking perfectly normal! Do you see this? Yeah, girl, that excitement is a person who thought she was gonna have to spend like $10,000 on vet bills fixing my horse, and it ended up just being a bruise on his foot from turnout. This is not a video that I ever really wanted to film. Of course, it's never fun when any of my animals get hurt or sick or literally any of that. And, you know, it just fucking sucks, dude. Like, this last week has just been a lot. It was just, like, really hard. It was really, really hard for me to deal with it over the last week, and I don't want to cry. I mean, it's just always really hard when, like, one of my animals has, like, a serious injury, and it was so emotionally devastating for me to deal with the fact that, like, my horse might have a crippling injury for the rest of his life. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to film the before, because I was just so scared and I didn't want to tell anybody. Like, I didn't tell anybody outside my barn. Man, I am just like so unbelievably grateful that they sent me these Scoop Boots a few weeks ago, because it could not have come at a more perfect time. If I didn't have these boots to try out every option to see what's wrong with my horse, I probably would have ended up going through with thousands of dollars of medical procedures and try to fix the source of the issue before realizing that it's just a bruise in his hoof. I wish that I would have recorded more of his limping beforehand, but I honestly didn't know if the Scoop Boots were gonna fix it or not. I seriously was just doing trial and error today because my vet and we scheduled an x-ray and an ultrasound for later this week if it doesn't doesn't get better. So he has actually had his scoop boots on for the last week straight. I have not taken them off. They are safe to leave on your horse's feet full time, and they even have skins for specific rehabilitation purposes. I personally believe these are a way better option than putting metal shoes on your horse's feet. If your horse needs extra traction in the winter or on trail rides, these are definitely better. They have way more traction than an actual metal shoe, and they still allow shock absorption to be absorbed through the hoof instead of having to ricochet all the way up the horse's leg. There's been a couple times where the top strap has come off, but the actual boot stayed on the entire time. These are super secure. They've never twisted, they've never turned in the last week that they've been on, and they're, not to mention, like, stupidly easy to put on. It took me a second to put these on. It was so easy. It's super easy to keep these clean. They look really nice. The design is great because it fits right onto your horse's hoof, and they have many different sizes to choose from, and they also last for up to 2 years for one pair of boots. It's not only worth it financially to get these, but also worth it for your horse's overall health and wellness, because there's no reason to nail shoes onto your horse's feet when you could just put scoop boots on them for traction purposes, if you're doing some excessive riding one day, if maybe one day your horse needs a boot for rehabilitation, if your horse develops sensitivity on their hoof like Link did. On top of that, there are so many professional riders in all disciplines who have started riding in scoop boots who have talked openly about how amazing they are and how great they are for their horses. In my opinion, unless it is medically advised for you to shoe your horse, I do not think that shoeing is the answer to people's problems. I would definitely just recommend that you use something such as scoop boots for added protection for your horse's foot, or even just keeping around the barn if your horse ends up needing it one day. Otherwise, just keep your horse barefoot. This is honestly just my opinion, just from my experience in the horse world. I think it's important for equestrians to educate themselves, not only on horse anatomy, but on their own personal horses. So if you're interested in checking out scoop boots, I am gonna link them below. No affiliate code, nothing. I am not sponsored by them at all. I just really recommend them, and I wanted to thank them again for sending me these because they really saved my life over the last week, and I just could not be more grateful. Also, I want to say that if you want to watch Link's full rehabilitation behind the scenes, I am going to upload that full video and content on my Patreon, so definitely go check me out down below. And if you want to check out Link Equestrian and all of the things that we have available for sale over there, we sell equine and animal activist apparel. I definitely appreciate it if you guys would check that out, because that link is below as well. But otherwise, I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.